Good.
Okay, so now I'm going to start recording, yes?
Oh, it says leave meeting.
No, just hit continue. Now I hit record and stay to the
I
top.
don't leave the meeting yet. There we go. Awesome. Okay. Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be talking about what happens when a major challenge or crisis comes up for a couple, why some couples are not only able to survive, but to thrive during these times. What work do we need to do ourselves as individuals within a relationship to make it work? We're going to learn some strategies and tips to create a deeper, meaningful, lifelong relationship. And what do we do now if we need support? Hi, I'm Melanie Hayden of the Healing Cocoon, and I will be your host with my awesome guests, Cory and Jay Fiset. Welcome.
Hello.
The Healing Cocoon
Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you guys here. So I just want to do a little bit of an intro, and then we are going to dive right in. So the Healing Cocoon is focused on your health and wellness, offering support and resources, bringing you leaders and experts and amazing human beings to share their stories and tips to help you thrive and enjoy strength, endurance, and flexibility in all aspects of your life. We're going to meet Jay and Cory here, and believe it or not, they met in high school in 1984 when they were teenagers. And yes, I know, they still look like teenagers. So I think it has a lot to do with your
Thank you.
relationship. And you guys just celebrated your 25th anniversary in 2020, have a couple of boys aged 10 and 15, and you've facilitated couples retreats and workshops for over 10 years. And you just stopped when your oldest son was born. And Jay has been a leader in his community, serving and supporting through facilitating personal and business development growth for entrepreneurs for over 3 decades. And on a side note, that's actually where we met, well over 20 years ago, I think. So Jay has been an inspiration and a mentor for a very long time, and I have had the pleasure of getting to know Cory as well over the years, always enjoying great conversation over great food and wine. So they work together, they play together, they raise awesome kids together, and now they're here to share what they have really well earned and learned, their relationship success stories and concepts, and what you may be able to gain from them and learn about deeper connections. So again, welcome Jay and Cory to the Healing Cocoon podcast room.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Now, Melanie, we keep hearing, now it's bad. Sorry, because I was going to say
A little feedback?
Yeah, whenever we talked, then we could hear it. Now I turned my mic down and now we can't. But it was pretty bad during the intro, which is why I thought we shouldn't do the whole interview without that. But you don't hear it now.
No, I don't hear it now.
Was it my feedback that you were getting?
It was our voice on delay in your background coming back to us.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I don't hear it now.
Good now?
Yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Made it go away. I love technology for that.
Yeah.
When it works, it works.
Yes. It's funny because I've been on enough of these where it's like one thing, it's like I should have said something, and then it's like, oh shit, we're doing it again. So anyway.
Hey, we're just moving forward. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for letting me know. So I think this is the perfect time to be talking to you guys because Valentine's Day is coming up, of course, and that always shines a spotlight on relationships. For the good, the bad,
and the otherwise.
And otherwise, exactly. And of course, like this past 10 months of pandemic has really put a crush on families, on individuals, on relationships. And we know, the ties that bind us and the ties that tear us apart, crisis, challenge, that's what defines us as individuals, as businesses, and couples, and the little tiny cracks that existed before can be split wide open when crisis hits. And just before we get started, I just want to recognize that you guys are not therapists, you're not couples therapists, you're not here to counsel people. You're really here to share what you've learned and what you've experienced over 25 years of marriage and by leading couples retreats.
Right.
The interesting part is that, and I always tease, is that yes, we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, but we were together 10 years prior to that. I always joke that it's like, we rushed the altar after a decade, So it's quite literally, it's really like 35 years, even though the
And then we
anniversary.
rushed kids by waiting another decade. So we had a decade of dating, we had a decade of being married, and then kids. So we, I think we laid that groundwork pretty well.
Yes.
We don't tend to rush into things at all.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have no how do I put it? We have no qualms or claims to having the way or being trained in this process. What we do have is, 35 years of leading personal transformation programs, 35 years of working our stuff out with one another, for one another. And there's some things that have served and supported us. And we have often just been asked, like, so how the hell do you guys do that? And this retreat is really a response to those questions.
Yeah. I definitely want to get into talking about the retreat for sure. That's a big part. That's the other big part of why I think it's really great to have you here, because you have something new that you're introducing. And again, just as an individual, seeing you guys, you really, you get to see a lot of success, and we get to see the front end of that. But I don't think a lot of people really understand what it takes to make that all work. So what have you guys been seeing in okay, so clearly people are asking you, because what have you been seeing during the pandemic in your community, like with couples and couples that you know of, like what's happening that you're witnessing?
Well, what I would say is, if whatever your relationship status is prior to everything shutting down, what you're dealing with, what you're working on, the good, the bad, the ugly, like the beautiful, everything probably is magnified during the time that now you're in, close quarters with each other, and everything is, it's not see you later in 8 hours. It's like, we're together for 8 hours. We're together all day. We're together all night. We're with the kids. Added stress, perhaps job loss, and everything going on that people are dealing with. The primary relationship will either perhaps strengthen from the two of you in that space, or it'll weaken depending on, where you are going into it.
Yeah.
Probably is what I've heard from people in terms of dealing with challenges and struggles.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I would add to that is that there's a trajectory and a pathway in a relationship that is always underway, whether people tell the truth about it or not. And that trajectory, and I'll use our example, that trajectory can be easy to ignore if, in my case, I'm on planes, trains, and automobiles 2 weeks out of a month. And then I'm home with a week of catch up with the kids and a week of attempted catch up with my dear wife. And then I'm gone again. It's like that leaves an awful lot of space for parallel lives, for avoiding some core challenges that might be going on, for not necessarily having the deep, meaningful, and difficult conversations. But the truth is, all of a sudden, poof, we're together day and night and all those pieces. And the great news for us is that while there was some bumpy times in that transition, the foundation was strong. But if the foundation isn't strong and there isn't the skills to have the conversations, if there isn't the permission to challenge the status quo, if there isn't the willingness to reinvent, then this becomes incredibly taxing for people. Like I can't tell you the number of calls that I have had just saying, it's like, I don't think we're going to get through this. And by the way, just an interesting note to it is that it doesn't seem to be much middle ground. Like, I think in the busyness of our world, there's a bunch of relationships that are meh in the middle, right? Because of the dynamic I just described. But in the conversations that we've been having, it's either, this is the best thing ever. I mean, our internal joke is #best pandemic ever.
It's been a great year.
It's truly one of our best, perhaps the best. I think we could argue the best. But we don't say that too often because we know how hard it is for some people, right? Like we consider ourselves blessed for that. But best pandemic ever to how the hell do I put an end to this and create something new in this taxing and difficult time, because this ain't it. And it's really, it's kind of like this. If you're thinking of like an ice floe breaking, and you could stand on the crack while the world was going on busy and all those sorts of things, but the ice floe is moving, and you're either going to pick one side of the ice floe or the other, or you're going to get damn wet.
You're going down anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. So that actually, that's the really great thing about the foundational pieces that you have, that you've developed. So what are some of the things that, the difference between, when a major crisis hits, that some people can not just survive, because we do go into survival mode. I mean, there's a lot of like, if we can just get through the financial piece of this, if we can just get through the layoff, if we can just get through the kids are now having a crisis of their own, if we can just get through this, and then we dive into that just survival mode. And how do we readjust and reaffirm and get back to like, okay, we have been surviving, but man, we got to get back to something else. Or yeah, the iceberg we're standing on there, and we are going to go one way or the other. So what are some more of those like real foundational pieces? And you talked a little bit about them, like the things that kept you guys over the 10 years and the 10 years and the 10 years where all these big things were changing in your life, and now especially. What are the foundational pieces that we need to have and should be looking to strengthen?
I'd like to answer the first one if I can, because I think, and I think this from our history at Personal Best Seminars and my book, but I think for us, the truth telling and being each of us as accountable as we could be for our role in what we created. And we had some bumpy times at the beginning of this. It's like, wait a second, is this how we want this to be? Would we both sign up for another 10 years of this if it just continued same old? Like, is that what we want? Is that what we're capable of? And it was some really challenging and difficult conversations about, look, this is what I did and this is how I showed up that led to this, I'm going to say, comfort that became a rut that actually then built distance. And it's like, this is my partner, and I've got to own what that is and what it was and why it was, and I got to be courageous enough to tell the truth about those pieces. And I think, I said to Cory a bunch of times, like, I just really admired the grace through which she particularly navigated the personal accountability piece, because I think if we weren't in that spot, we'd still be going, it's like, well, in 1932, when you didn't do, that projection and friction, I think we did really well with that.
We did. And it's hard for a lot of people to do that, though. It's way easier said than done, because when you're struggling or something's not working, it's natural to want to blame, right? Or, it's because of you that this, and this happened, or it's because of, and to be able to stand back and go, I played this role, you played this role, and really be honest about it is, I think, first of all, the first step. Well, maybe even before that is you both need to be willing and want the relationship to work. Because sometimes, one of you might just be like, I don't even want to put in I don't want to have a conversation. I'm done, and if then that's a whole nother trajectory. But if you both,
that's an important thing to tell the truth about, by the way.
Absolutely.
I have,
absolutely.
I've been in a spot of coaching and supporting couples several times in times of crisis. And it's like, look, this is prerequisite one. And I have had the experience of being like 4 months down the road, and it's like, yeah, I didn't really want to do this. It's like, okay, well, that's okay. Now we know. This is a different conversation, but you're right. That's truly the first one, not the accountability is the second.
The willingness, the ownership of your role and accountability, and having the honest conversations, like real honest conversations. So, those would be, I think, the first 3 steps in handling that, and then moving forward from there.
It does make a lot of sense. I mean, you're right. You have to have a willing partner. You just really, really need to have a willing partner, and you need that self-reflection. So that's the piece of my own homework, my own work within this relationship, within this context of this relationship.
And it's why I think COVID was so is whatever.
Still,
I guess it still is now.
Was so powerful for us, because we developed a set of rituals around how we had those conversations, around the time that we spent together, around our willingness to hear whatever the other person had on their heart, mind, and soul. And there was no taking off. There was no, I gotta run and see a client. There's no, I gotta get on a plane. There's no, I gotta go take care of my mom and dad. Like there was none of that. It was just us. And that commitment and ritual was stunning.
You make a good point. Is like, so if we're in that place where we know that we need support, or we know that, we need to work on this, creating that space for that, where, it's just like, okay, so somebody's watching their favorite TV show. That's not the best time to do that. Or just before you're going to bed, or you're brushing your teeth, and it's like, I really need to talk to you. Are we staying together? Like, what the hell's going on here? The damn toothpaste, it's off again. And it's like, you just sort of lose your mind. And that's, I think, what happens when we kind of get to that real edge. It's just like, okay, I'm finally losing it, but I'm not creating space to talk about it. I'm just losing it again, so.
Yeah. And in the beginning of this, our ritual was in the evenings, and it would even be, if there was something on my mind, I'll just say for me, for example, I would know tonight we'll have an opportunity to talk about this. It's not like I'm going to follow you around during the day and say, I want an answer to this, or let's talk about that. It was a space created that we both had agreed upon. And in the beginning, there were some nights where it'd be 3, 4 in the morning, and we're still talking. And we're still talking. We started at like 9:30 when, the youngest went to bed. Yeah. We had a lot to say. We had a lot to communicate, and it wasn't like that all the time, but there were certainly evenings like that where we were just blown away by,
like, how could it, where, what?
Time stood still, really. Yeah. And we just had hours and hours and hours of conversation. So.
And we did things like, just for example, like I know there's lots of posts at being, it's like, okay, so what's the Netflix thing? We probably and I think with sort of the kids going back to school, and sort of we're in a different spot right now, but I would say in the first 7 months of COVID, we watched 3 hours of television in 7 months.
Hardly.
Like that's it. Like it was all, we got shit, we got to get handled. We got to get clear about this. We need to have some time and space together. We need to reinvent and recreate. And it was like, there was no desire for it. It was just nothing.
We realized how much of a distraction it used to be. He was in town and we had the opportunity to be together. We'd watch TV or watch.
Yeah.
And that just became normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, that, it really demonstrates the commitment that you need to take to get depth and to make it work. I read a statistic the other day that it takes couples almost 6 years before reaching out and seeking support. So they know, and they have known for sort of 6 years. And partly, I would imagine, again, because you're just living in your day-to-day life, and just people go to work, people go to school, you get kids, another kid comes in, you get a dog, something's going on with my dad, my mom, my health, somebody else's health. Like, again, you're just dealing with like whatever's being fired at you. So why do you think it takes people so long to get help?
You go, sweetheart.
And actually, Melanie, I'm glad you said that, because that would be the next step to, if you're willing and accountable and ready to have the hard conversations. For us, because of facilitating couples and the work we've done and all of that, we felt like we knew we
became self-righteous assholes. That's what we became.
Like, who will be able to help us? Like, we should know, we need just like, we should know this. We should just be able to do this. We're, whether it's your personal growth or as a couple, when we've been facilitating these concepts for years, and here we are facing challenges with them, well, who do we turn to? Mm-hmm. And that was seriously
one of the biggest errors we made in our whole relationship.
Yeah, we should have earlier reached out for support, but we didn't, because we couldn't just handle it. And then when we realized we weren't actually handling it very well, we did call in support of, actually a friend of ours who was phenomenal during this whole process and really helped us a ton, just to have somebody on the outside look in and see what you're just not seeing while you're in your own little bubble, right? And he was brilliant at that. He was really good at that.
I like to describe it as that. So we've been together since teenagers.
Yeah.
We can complete one another's sentences. We know how somebody's going to like 90% of the time, one of us is redundant because we know how that's going to go, right? Like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But the 10% where we get it wrong, holy shit, we get it wrong. And it took somebody outside to reflect that. It's like, whoa, that's an assumption that you're making. It's like, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not an assumption. And then it's like, was that an assumption? She's going, and I'm like, what? How? What?
Or I'd say so, or he'd ask me to clarify something, and he'd say to Jay, you know, what did you hear? Just even that, what did you hear her say?
Simple active listening.
Right. And so Jay would say what he thought he heard, and me and our coach would be like, is that what you meant? No, not even close. He goes, no, I didn't think so either. So we would have a lot of laughs because we kind of, it dawned on us like, you know, wow, this is really valuable just to have this feedback and this support. So I think there's a lot of reasons people don't reach out. Self-righteous indignation like us, we know it all. We did not know it all. We found out we did not. And there's lots more that, you know, we don't know coming up, I'm sure. So we're much more willing now to reach out for that. And again, the willingness, you know, often you'll have one person who wants the support and the other person does not. So right there is a block. And then all the excuses for it. It costs money. It's, you know, it takes a lot of time. And there's a million reasons why I think people don't reach out for support. And sometimes it's exactly what we need. In fact, most times it's exactly what we need if we're struggling, you know, and having trouble getting through our issues.
Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing that I would say that I think is interesting about the 6-year piece is I actually don't think that, I actually think that's what it was for us, is about 6 years. So what transpired in terms of patterns, and I think this is one of the things that couples, this process that we've come to call the power between. And the fundamental premise of the power between is that there's a dynamic that happens between all couples always, that is either we are magnifying, strengthening, and supporting the creative power between us to parent, have business, nurture the relationship. Like there's this upward spiral that happens when we stand in support of the greatness of one another and we address one another's challenges and weaknesses in an open and honest and powerful manner. So that's the power between that grows. And then the other power between is the power of power struggle, of trying to get our needs met, of having hurt feelings, of projection of our victimization, of all those sorts of things, which is the downward spiral. Yeah. And I think one of the fundamental premises that I would love for people watching or hearing this to consider is that it's only one of those two things. The bullshit in between of, oh, we're just maintaining, we're doing fine. We're in a holding pattern until the kids go to school. We're in a, like, that is a bald face lie. It is one or the other. It is just like nature. We are either growing or we are decaying. That is the truth of it. And I think if we can recognize the pattern, and if it's like, yeah, we're all good, we've been in the same spot, it's fine. So here's the truth of it. That's bullshit. It is actually in decline. And if somebody wants to have that conversation and the open conversation with their partner about what that means, that opens up a whole nother kettle of fish. Now, I was just trying to say this, is that all couples have this up and down based on what's going on in their lives. And I think it was about 6 years for us, in all seriousness, because Cory's dad passed. We had our second son. Cory struggled a little bit with some depression.
My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and moved up here, and I was taking care of her.
Like there was a
lot happening.
We moved into this new house. We sold a business that then landed back in our lap. Like there was a confluence of epic challenges that caused some depression. Now, at the beginning of that, it was like I felt incredibly honored and pleased and thrilled.
And you being away a lot, like
which came a little bit after.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I felt really honored to serve, support, and be present, and all those sorts of things. But as the years went on, I started to travel more. I think that it was probably about 6 years from the point where it's like, we really should get some assistance. And then we got to this, at the time, my story was stabilizing stage. Say, hey, we're doing okay. It's all right. It's not great, but we're doing okay. Until COVID hit and really forced what I'm going to call the truth telling come to Jesus of, is
Jesus.
would we
Get
do
that come to Jesus moment.
yeah. Like, would we
Yeah.
do this for another 10 years? If it's like, just like press the pause button and it's like, honest to God, with what you're capable of and who you are and all those sorts of things, is this okay? With who I am and what I'm capable of, is this okay? And we're both like, F no.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think we were different in that 6-year span, honest to God. And COVID was the blessing of pause to say, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, is this it?
Right. And I think that any crisis hopefully brings that opportunity of like that, just that self-awareness of who am I in this crisis? And is this who I want to be in this crisis?
Right.
And moving past this, you know, yeah, there are days where we just have to get through. We all know that we have to power through. But if all we do is put our head down and just power through, like you said, like we get into that pattern and not recognizing, because I had not thought of it before, like the holding pattern, you think is the holding pattern, but you're right, it is not. It is the downward spiral. If that's all you're doing is just even trying to maintain,
Exactly.
instead of like trying to grow and flourish from this. And what have I learned? And who do I want to be? Again, it's always, who do I want to be coming out of this? And who do we want to be coming out of this? And
Right.
especially when you have kids and, you know, looking at again, like why we don't maybe not go to couples therapy. And some people look at, wow, it's really expensive. Well, geez, divorce is really expensive.
That's
Having
true.
2 homes is really expensive. Having all of those things is really expensive. And like our physical health, our emotional health, the health of our relationships and marriage should always be taught, because nothing else can be there without that. And again, like you said, like some people are just, they're not, it's like, great, we've looked at this, we've said, hey, you know what, we might be better off not together, but we can still support each other to not be together. So
And I, you know, this might sound a little harsh, but I believe that is a choice. You know, like it's like, do we want to be together? It's like, hell yeah, we want to be together. But that's a question that I think should be asked.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to Cory's very first point, which is, am I committed to this? Do I want this? Is because if the answer to that question is no, then for goodness sakes, there's got to be somewhere, someone, somehow, something out there that you could create joy, meaning, and significance with. By the way, as long as you do your own work and that pattern and all the shit that unfolded there gets addressed. And I think that's, I just think that's an important point, is that nobody has to be married. We choose to be married because we love each other and we want to do our life together and all those pieces. But nobody has to. Like, that's an assumption that I think people should question, who have accepted the struggle and the power struggle between. It's like,
Right.
Is that really what you want to do?
yeah. So so you guys, you know, you talked about the big shift that you did in 2020, which is really awesome. I mean, you reconnected, you did, like, tell us a little bit more, because you started some new rituals, you are working out together again, you're working together as well. This is new that you guys are back to, working together. And then you have, I'm super excited because I also really want to dive into this with you guys, your new couples retreat that you have coming up, because I think there's just so much opportunity for people who are wanting to go deeper and who may be sitting on the edge, who just want to come and say, hey, let's check this out and see what we can learn from this.
Right. Where to start? Well, for us, the ritual was a big part that we've touched on already. In the evenings, we had I don't know what a way of being set up that we did pretty much, prior to that, though, I'd say the decision to make this a priority. So, and having kids, as a mom, I would sometimes feel like, it's like we have made each other, I have made him the number one priority to work through and have these conversations and get our relationship back on track. And there were times, and then I had to keep reminding myself that, that's important so that our kids have parents, that stay together and that, love them. So making it a priority is really important. Having some kind of ritual set up that supports the two of you and having those conversations and spending the time together, like it's dedicated time that's non-negotiable. So it doesn't matter what's going on in the world or who's at the door or company or anything like that. This is our time. Our bedroom became our sanctuary. It became a special place that, you know, we took the distraction of TV away. We took clutter away. We took, you know,
we brought a massage table in.
Yeah, it's, you would appreciate that. We brought a massage table in. And we actually use it. And it's not, it used to be there where Jay would put his suitcase on when we get home. It'd be the dirty clothes pile. It'd be, you know,
right, like hanging stuff on your bike in your, you know, your stationary bike, right? It becomes your clothes rack.
Yeah. So we created an environment that supported the two of us in, and it's a real beautiful, like at the end of the day, every day, even last night, we're like, oh, this is just the space that we just feel so connected. And it's a time that I look forward to every single night. There's other things we did that outside of that, we just, you know, trying different things together, trying new things together. I mean, we've been together a long time. We've done a lot of stuff, but there were lots of things that we had not tried, and we had not, you know, for something new and different and a risk or something exciting, something odd, something unusual that just gets you out of the same old, the rut. And so we committed to, in the past year, at least probably 3 or 4 of those types of things. And so that was like awesome, because we'd be like, wow, why did we never try that before? You know? Why did we wait so long? Then there were other things that was like, yeah, not so much. So, you know, it was a great way to experiment and play and just delve into risk taking. We did a lot of that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that was important, if anybody's at home feeling like, I really know my partner, and we've sort of run out of things to talk about or create together, or any of those pieces. It's like, you know, literally we've been together 35 years, and it takes intention to manifest a different experience to, and a bunch of things, you know, first of all, to look forward to. It's like, holy crap, are we really going to do that? Secondly, to have an experience together that we've not had before. Thirdly, to come back and talk about it. What does it mean? And is that something we'd like to try again? What does it actually mean for us as individuals? What does it mean for us together as a couple? Like it just stimulated this whole different context for creation and conversation. And again, I'm going to go back to that little model, which which we have utilized to I'd say recreate ourselves, but is the framework of the retreat as well, is that what are the deliberate actions and adventures that we can do that put us in a space of conscious creation? And by the way, I know sometimes people are like, so what was the crazy shit you did? Well, some we can tell you and some we can't. but it was like something as little and as easy as in Calgary, there was these weird little dinners in these plastic domes out at this ranch, which sounds stupid, but was a beautiful night. Like it really was. It was just this weird, like, I can't even really describe it, but it was like, that was a fun thing. We went mountain biking for the first time, and Cory would always be like, I'm not going mountain biking. No, you guys go with me and the kids. But it's like, she came, and we had a phenomenal time.
It was big for me, Melanie, because he's always been the big risk taker in our relationship, you know, for business, and like, he'll just put everything on the line and go do it, you know, and I'm more security conscious. So I like to be comfortable. I like to feel like I'm safe. And even though in the last year, all of that's an illusion, right? Like control, it's all an illusion, right? We realized through COVID, we have none of that anyway. So why bother pretending we do? But for me, my I think the growth for me this past year has been just what I said to Jay. What would be a automatic reaction for me to some of his ideas would be like, no.
It's not even out my mouth, and I can see the look. It's like,
I don't think so. I'll pass. So my commitment to myself and us and our relationship is to become what I call a sea of yeses. So instead of, and of course check in. I mean, it doesn't mean I have to say yes to everything, but check in. Like, what's my motivation for saying no? Is it just because I'm afraid? Is it just because I'm not sure? Is it just because I've never done it before? And being committed to just turning those into yeses, to try something new and different.
Which is
And
awesome.
that has been a
So
game
good.
changer for me and for us. It's been a huge game changer. And to even just try it, just to step through it, and then I know, right? Like, I'm really glad I said yes to that, or don't ever say yes to that again.
Happy I said yes, and next time it'll be a no thanks.
But I don't know until I do it.
Right?
And I think whether it's a relationship or just your own journey that you're on, that alone can shift things unbelievably. Yeah.
Wow, that was huge. Thank you for sharing that, Cory. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal to recognize that. And that's part of what you talked about earlier, is just like owning, where am I in this? What part is that? And why am I saying no? And then stepping out, it's just like, oh, come on, let's give it a try, right? And then you step out, and all of a sudden it's empowering. And the growth that you would experience personally and together. And for you, Jay, to see her like just expanding like that has got to like feed your soul. Like that feeds both of you.
Nothing is sexier in the universe than the woman I love taking a risk, being scared shitless and doing it anyway. There's nothing in the universe sexier than that.
Yeah. And there is nothing. You're like, I don't know if sexy was the thing I was going for at the time, right?
But it is like it's. I don't know. I don't have great words for this, but there's this.
It's an expansion versus a
contraction,
right? Yeah. And it's the feeling small or feeling like, whoo. I mean, that just changes the energy of the person, and I think the dynamics of the relationship.
Yeah.
So I get what you mean by that.
And well, let me. I think probably the more accurate word is attractive and magnetic. But she's still sexy as hell, and so things get lumped together.
Fair enough. That's all good. That's all good. Yeah, I kind of discovered that when I was climbing. I started indoor climbing, and I am afraid of heights, petrified of heights. And so it was a no for a long time. And, the peer pressure of my friends who are going. So I think peer pressure, I think it can be used, like for really good things.
Yeah.
That little bit of pressure. And then, so then I started doing like a 30-foot wall, and it just petrified me. And I was like, nah, I don't need to climb. And they're like, oh, just come a couple times. So I took my course and all that stuff. And I'd be like, just, 30-foot wall would seem like, just so out of reach. And then we started doing 65-foot walls. And that was the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, just, clinging to the wall and just, and then now I can do a 65-foot wall, and some of them still scare the crap out of me, but it's that piece of, like you're saying, Cory, it's like, yes, I'm going to just, because I like the safety and security thing too. I don't want to be hurt. I like my limbs and my teeth there, everything all in place, and I don't want to tumble on anything. And like, good for you. It really makes a difference. So let's talk about the retreat that you have coming up, and what we can expect from that, and what we can look forward to, and what we're going to, be taking out of that.
Good question. We have the retreat is the power between, a reset for couples. And the spiral Jay was talking about is a core pillar of the weekend. It's happening February 5th to 7th. So the week before Valentine's Day. You mentioned Valentine's Day, and it's funny because I know it's coming up, but we each have a birthday in between now and Valentine's Day. It's a big couple of weeks. It's like birthday, Valentine's Day. So I kind of even forgot about Valentine's Day. But so it's 3 days. And do you want to add in terms of
I think there's really
summary?
I think there's really 3 key pieces of it in terms of what its aim is, and we want to be really, really clear that we probably, in terms of these rituals and those conversations and what it meant and all the things, we probably spent thousands of hours in those conversations, like quite literally thousands of hours in those conversations. So I want to be really clear with everyone that this is not a panacea. We don't propose that it's a quick fix, that this is going to solve deep, meaningful issues of a relationship. That is not its role. The role is really simple and straightforward. It is to, number one, clarify commitment and evaluate where are we really at. So that first foundational piece of this is what it is. share a variety of activities and processes that stimulate some of what we have come to call the big conversations. And every single one of those things is aimed at this idea of the power between. So are we actually in a downward spiral? And if we are, fine, what do we do to stop that? And how do we begin to actually create the upward spiral? So that becomes this metaphor throughout this entire process. And all of the conversations are designed to stop the downward spiral and create the upward spiral in a clear, contextual, grounded manner. There's still, in most cases, there's still going to be hundreds or thousands of hours of conversations going to happen afterwards, but we can strategically and intelligently identify and build the, I'm going to call it the stops for the downward, and create the ladder for the upward is really what the aim of it is. So really, it's a 3-day process, a couple of hours of Friday night with a bunch of
home play.
Yes.
Home play.
I keep saying homework, and she's like, everything isn't work.
Home play. Reframe.
I took an online women's sexuality course from, I'll give a plug, Kim Anami, which you may have heard of. You should Google her if you haven't.
She's a vaginal.
I'll add her in the show notes.
She's a vaginal weightlifter. Yeah.
Oh.
But all her stuff is about home play. And I said, I really like that. In our old couples seminars, we used to call it homework. It doesn't sound like homework. It doesn't sound as much fun. So home play is.
Love it.
And the home play in that course is pretty awesome. It's going to be pretty awesome in ours as well.
Kim Anami's home play was really good.
but again, so just on that note, tying something back is like going back to things that we did new. It's like, so should we do this sexuality workshop? It's like, yes, we should. Like, let's just see. And some of it was a little entertaining, and most of it was freaking awesome. Anyway, the point being is this idea of short spans of time. So, a couple of hours on the Friday night, home play. Then Saturday is just like 10 till 6. And in that process, we will stimulate conversations. We will establish what the vision for the relationship is, which was for us, that moment of, if everything stopped and we just like this pause, it's like, would we go Yahoo another 10 years of this? And if the answer to that isn't hell yes, then we have work to do. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it's got to be like an all in hell yes, high five, let's get after it, or we've got some substantial work to do. So,
hell yes, with some tweaks and some, perhaps getting back to our path. There's that too. Like, I think the couples we have registered are going to be in both places. Right?
I agree. Yeah. So it's that whole vision creation of what is this vision going to look like? And then the third day is really about what are the rituals? What is the sanctuary? What is the process? What is the commitment? What is the unfolding that we must take back to our lives? So it is the idea, simply put, is that if we can lay that foundation and they have the experience of the contextual frame and understanding of what is actually going on, with evaluation, vision, and the creation of the environment and the process and the rituals for them, because our rituals are not necessarily going to be somebody else's.
Right.
That's what the stand of the weekend is. And, my hope and prayer is that if people felt, if we look at what we created, if we helped them feel like 10% of what we felt, I would say that it was a slam dunk success. And the thing that I keep saying to people is that if you had asked me prior to COVID what a 10 out of 10 relationship would be, I had a pretty clear answer, actually. And it was not what we had, just to be clear. And as we continue to evolve through this, is that we kept having to reinvent the scale by which we measured. Because the truth of the matter is, what I thought was going to be awesome and amazing, we so far exceeded that seems like today, and this is not an exaggeration, looking back at what I thought would have been 10 relationship in January of 2020, looks stupid to me today. It looks small, it looks ridiculous, it looks silly. It's honestly a little bit on the embarrassing side. And I would have stood with great clarity in January going, it's like, hell, it spells, if you had this, would that be great? And so anyway, the thing that my point to that is, we've been asking the couples who are registered to like set bold goals for what you want to experience with your partner because you might be surprised at how many times you have to change the scale to make sense of what you create.
Mhm.
Wow, I love that. I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. That can be applied to anything, but to have that as a couple and to really look at it. And that just speaks to there is no limit to the growth that we can experience, no
Which,
matter where we are.
which to
The
me, that's the
growth is
spiral.
just unlimited.
That's why it's that spiral, is that it actually
Yeah.
continues to, like, I
Can
remember,
keep going.
yes,
Yeah.
there are times where we were in bed, like having these talks, and it's like, you ever dream that this, like, did you ever, it's like, like, it's just, it has been an amazing process. And I hope
Mhm.
even the smallest of seeds for that,
Right.
for the couples that come to join us,
Yeah.
will make a monumental difference.
Oh,
And what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think in August, when we celebrated our anniversary, we were saying, well, this is, where we're at right now. Like, how do we even make this better? And now we're in, January of the next year. And it's like where we thought we were in August, where I thought we were kind of like, how do we even expand on this? Because it feels like we're as far as we can go. We've gone way further than that, So that's what that I love about that spiral, that you think, this is it, and this is great, and this is phenomenal, and this is wonderful. But there's more. There's always the possibility of more, which for me, having an open heart and mind to that was huge, because I just had to think really big.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and I know we're getting to the end of this, but I'll leave people with a question, which was, we were on, by the way, one of the other benefits of COVID. So we drove to Vancouver for our 25th anniversary, and we got the penthouse at this really high-end hotel downtown Vancouver, which, because of COVID, it was like free compared to its regular pricing. So we have this beautiful patio, and we're exchanging our 25th wedding anniversary gifts. But the question that I asked Cory, and the question that I think each person coming into this weekend should be asking of themselves for their partner, is this simple question: is, how can I love you better?
mm,
And not that's not about sending flowers or those. I'm like, at the core of your being, how can I love you better? That's the
and that
contextual
question kind of took me off guard. Like, I wasn't expecting that, and it blew me away a little bit. I was, wow. I have to think about that. I didn't have an immediate answer because of,
we were off the scale again.
We were
like we were
right.
off the scale, and it's like, so
how can you love me better than you are right now? Okay, well, let me perk. But that was a brilliant question that he had never asked me before, ever, in our 35 years we've been together. So it was, that was really cool. And it's a good question to ask each other. Absolutely.
It is. You can
Really
start.
good
Where do we learn more about the, this amazing retreat? And it is an online retreat, correct?
It is
Yeah.
virtual.
So, yeah,
Now,
we love our Zoom virtual retreats.
yes, and our request for folks, if they can swing in, and we know that isn't possible for everyone, is to create space for that ritual and those conversations in that sanctuary. So we ask people, if you can, go get a hotel room or find a space away from some of the anchors and the distractions and the patterns of your home to help with this reset. So yes, it's virtual, but you are going to go create a space that is going to be fantastic for you and your partner. And all of the details and a little bit of our story that we haven't said here is on thepowerbetween.us. So thepowerbetween.us, and all the details are there. And if any of this conversation resonates, we would just love to have you. And please know that it is private. So, most of the time in couples, there's one that really wants to do it, and one's like,
Almost always.
almost always. But just know that it is private. Most of the conversations, most of the activities are just you and your partner, and we will provide that space. And there's also the opportunity, if you so choose, to hear from other, what I'm going to call conscious couples, people who are really trying to do their own work, so that you're not alone. The patterns and the stuff that you're facing aren't, they're honestly really consistent and normal, of this idea of the comfort to the rut to the difficulties. Like, this is part of the path of marriage that people don't talk about. And it is why then somebody comes home and says, I want a divorce. And it's like, it doesn't need to be that way. If we can just tell the truth of the pattern is we go through this entire process, we land at a stage of agreement, and that comfort of agreement turns into a rut of disappointment that we put up with until we can't. And by the way, we can't does not mean divorce. Sometimes we can't means parallel lives. Sometimes can't means we give up on our dreams. Sometimes can't is we're waiting out the kids. So like there's so many different versions of that. But honest to God, if we've been talking to friends and associates and clients and all those sorts of things, there is nothing more normal than two people who love each other getting into a spot that isn't fulfilling.
Mhm.
That's as common as breathing. So what do we do about it?
Great. Well, like we do with any other thing that we want to learn more about, we get business coaches, we get the children tutors if they need help in math or whatever skills. So let's invest in ourselves as a couple, to, like you said, like if you look at where are we on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, but the possibilities, seem pretty endless. So thank you both. Anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I just wonder about that dynamite metaphor.
Yeah,
How much time have we got?
that might fit.
Whatever you like.
Okay, I'll give the short version of this. Is that
The Fiset short version. Call it.
so? Set your timer. Well, so I've had a bunch of conversations with people about the retreat, and I've come to and I said to Cory, like, I kind of feel like this is what's going on, and this is just another way of saying what I was saying before, which is it's kind of like every relationship has this long fuse, and that long fuse is actually attached to a stick of dynamite, and that fuse is burning. Sometimes it's burning really quickly. Sometimes it's just burning very, very slowly, but it is burning. And when the fuse hits the dynamite, only one of two things happen. Either the relationship itself explodes and there is separation, pain, difficulty, or settling for separate lives, or whatever the thing is, or the dynamite explodes the container and the context of the relationship to be recreated. It's only one of those two things. It's either the relationship itself or the container that used to hold it. And the purpose of our weekend is to make sure that when it gets to that spot, or we can do it deliberately, that it is the container and the context that has been limiting the experience of love, connection, peace, sexuality, creation. So the dynamite blows up the context so that we can consciously recreate it instead of the relationship. But make no mistake, if you're in a relationship, this is going on right now.
Wow, that's great. That's brilliant. That is a really, it's a very powerful image to take with us. So yeah, I can see people starting to think about like, ooh, how short is my fuse? Where am I? And what's going to blow when this thing goes? So it's a good thing to think about. Absolutely. So I am really looking forward to the day soon when we can actually connect in person and enjoy some wine and maybe raid the wine cellar if there is anything left after 2020. I suspect that there might not be anything there.
It's pretty low right now.
Yeah. The great big wine cellar that's usually full. I can see it in my mind. I can just see like maybe there's 3 bottles left on it. And I bet all the really good stuff is gone.
I was just saying there's 3 bottles of white.
There you go. Thank you both. I love and honor you so much. I think that you are amazing humans, and I love that you are always willing to share your truth, what you go through, because I think so many of us see other couples, or we see what's happening in other people's lives, and we just always think they're perfect, and we always think they're great, and we always think that, oh, they probably don't even have to work at it. But it really, I mean, we are all on a journey, and to be able to find that person that you do get to work through things with, and that you are so committed. You've always been committed to personal growth. You've always been committed to serving and supporting your community. So this event that you're doing, this retreat that you're doing, will be so helpful for the people that attend.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate
Thanks
you,
for
Melanie.
having us.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care, you guys.
You too.